صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الأبرار يشربون من كأس كان مزاجها كفورا. عينا يشرب بها عباد الله. عينا يشرب بها عباد الله يفجرونها تفجيرا. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا. ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا. فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا. وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا. متكئين فيها على الأرائك لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا. ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تذليلا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. For the honor of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his companions, please recite another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Just one quick announcement and reminder that Day of Ashura will be this Friday, July 28th. Inshallah, our program will get started at 10 a.m. sharp. Alhamdulillah, our respected scholar and guest, Sheikh Mahdy, he agreed to recite Ziyarat Ashura for us on that day. You don't want to miss that, so I encourage everyone to be on time, arrive here at 10 a.m. So inshallah we can get it started on time and we can, take advantage of the time we have until the adhan for Azadari and Maqtal and all of the other programs we have for that day. So again, don't forget 10 a.m. this Friday, inshallah. Without any further ado, let's welcome our respected scholar, Hujjatul Islam al-Muslimin, Mahdy Dardashty, with your loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. گفتم یا رب مرا براتی بفرست. گفتم یا رب مرا براتی بفرست. طوفان زدم فلک نجاتی بفرست. گفتند که با زمزمه یا مهدی بهر گل نرگس صلواتی بفرست. محمد و عجل فرجا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. الحمد و الثناء لله رب العالمین و الصلاة و السلام علی اشرف الانبیاء و المرسلین حبیب قلوبنا و طبیب نفوسنا ابی القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل علی محمد و علی آله الطیبین الطاهرین المعصومين المكرمين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين ولعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من حين إداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. So our discussion was focusing on, is it not my phone? Alhamdulillah, no. Our discussion was focusing on the importance of family and the value of family structure in the ending times to save us from the dangers of loneliness. And by that loneliness, if it happens to us, we will be in a situation that we can be easily defeated by the shaitan. So that's something we have to avoid by coming to the masjid if our families are not living with us here, by sticking to a community that can help us preserve our identity. And last night, if you all remember, we said that family and the household is a very special place of worship. There are things and there are deeds and there are acts of good that you could do at home that you can't achieve those rewards, and those acts of worship, you can't do them, you can't carry those anywhere else. Not saying that you have to abandon masjid, no. But if you are spiritually supported at home, then masjid can become beneficial to you. Otherwise, if you do not have a good home, if things are destroyed there, maybe masjid will not help you much. So, and we talked about the fact that how our sisters and their role as mothers is very, very highlighted and given importance, or the importance of it has been emphasized on in Islam as the pillars of the family structure. And one thing that was left from last night was that one of the reason that comes to my mind why divorce is very detested and unliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. About it we have halalun mabghuz. Halalun mabghuz. It's halal, yet it's detested. It's because by divorce, you're destructing this place of worship. You're destroying this special place of worship called family structure. And therefore, this destruction, sometimes, of course, in some situations, there's no choice between the spouses, between the wife and the husband. There's no choice. There's no way for them to go on. But you have to try. Brothers and sisters, divorce is the last resort. It's not the first option. It's the last resort, especially if there are kids involved. Our topic tonight is that we want to touch on the fact that house is a very special place for practical mysticism. برای ریاضت. این تیکش به فارسی یه جمله رو میگم، اشکال نداره که تقریب بشه ذهنها. خانه محل ریاضت است، محل آغاز سیر و سلوک است. It's the place that you can practice mysticism. You can start your journey for self-disciplining yourself to seek proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They went to Ayatollah Qadi alayhi rahmatullah alayh, and they asked him, Agha, where should we start our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's say this as introduction to our discussion tonight. Brothers and sisters, a motionless Islam is very, very dangerous. A motionless Islam. A motionless Islam will lead you to denial of the deen. Look at the examples in the history. There were people who were companions, who were next to the Holy Prophet, but their Islam was motionless. There was no progress. They didn't have any R&D. What happened? Not much later on, they became the first obstacles, and they became the very first enemies of the Holy Prophet. And there were people, on the other hand, who might have come from a background of kufr, but because their Islam that they embraced was in motion, was progressing on daily basis, on timely basis, then they not only they never became kafir, not only they never fell behind and fell aside, rather they stayed to the end with the Holy Prophet and the pure progeny of the Holy Prophet. You can see that in Karbala. On one side you have some of those who claim to love Abu Abdullah very deeply. They were the ones who signed the letter of invitation to Abu Abdullah to come to Kufa. Guess what happened? Their Islam was motionless. Their Islam was not progressing. They were not seeking proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What happened? They ended up standing against Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Many of them regretted what they did after they went to Karbala. But at that very hectic moment, the faith that they thought they have in their heart didn't come to their aid and help. How can I make sure my Islam is in motion? How can I make sure I'm progressing? Compare your today with yesterday. Compare this month of Muharram with this past Ramadan. Compare this Muharram with the past Muharram. حاسبوا قبل أن تحاسبوا. Do self-assessment. Do self-evaluation before your accounts goes under review after death by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And where is the best place that we can practice mysticism? We can grow. We can develop our deen. We can move towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the home. It is the family structure. They went to Ayatollah Allama Tabatabai Rahmatullah alayh. They said, Agha, give us a prescription for riyazat. Give us a prescription for ascesis. Give us a prescription for mysticism. Guess what he asked? The very first question. He asked that brother, are you married or are you single? And this brother was so surprised. He said, how can this be related to my question? My question was, give me a prescription, give me a piece of dua, give me a certain deed. For example, tell me, go do Salatul Layl, whatever. I was expecting this. Why are you asking me? Brothers and sisters, there are certain deeds that if you do while you're single, that can get you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if you do the same thing while you're married, can get you far, far away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, if you're single, you can volunteer in masjid, stay here till the Fajr, go to ziyarah with your friends, with the brothers from the masjid or outside community. Do all that. Go to the Hussein Day, to the procession. Do all of that. It's absolutely okay. It's actually getting you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's helping you preserve your identity as the lover of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But just in this case, imagine if you're married and you're leaving your family aside and you're just coming to the masjid for your own pleasure. The appearance of this action is looking good. Yet, the results of it are severe. Man, your responsibility now is to take care of your family. One time I walked out of a majlis and one of the sisters approached me and said, Haja, I have something to mention. I have a suggestion. I said, what? Said, go and tell the brothers. This happened not in here, it was in Iran. Said, my husband attends this majlis. Tell them, if you're married, your wife is gonna be scared staying up at home lonely. Ask them to come back. They're not single anymore. Some of these brothers are feeling that they have hired a servant. Tell them, and this was absolutely right. What she said was right. So tell them that they're married to a wife. Therefore, Ayatollah Qazi said, your sayr and suluk, your practical mysticism, this path, the initiation of it starts from home. If you want to know someone, look at their family. Of course, there are exceptions. Don't bring up the example of Prophet Nuh. That is one example. That is an exception. That is an exception. The principle is what? The principle is that look at their family. Look how they are doing and how they are dealing with their own family. I'm not saying judge people. Do not judge people. We are at no place to judge people. But that's what Allama Tabatabai said. He said, are you single or are you married? And then this guy was so surprised because different situations are having different prescriptions. You go to a doctor, if you have diabetes, all the prescriptions given to you are different from someone without diabetes, so on and so forth. Same actions, depending on your situations, can ascend you or descend you. Marhum Ayatollah Muhaddith Nuri, who was the teacher of, does anyone know who he was? Sheikh Abbas Qumi, the author of Mafatihul Janan, this book that we recite all these du'as. In his book, Jannatul Ma'wa, he has a book and he has beautiful, thought-provoking, eye-opening stories. In one of his stories, he says there was a very young man, a young brother living in Najaf long time ago. And he was very respected and revered by the Maraja and the scholars living in Najaf. Very mu'min, very pious man. And he had a father who was ill to the extent of disability. He was taking care of his father. His entire time was dedicated to giving care to his father. Only on Tuesday nights, he was heading to Masjid Sahle. He was making sure his father has enough water, he's taken care of, he can stay alone till the morning, and then he was heading to Masjid Sahle. He was praying and crying in his prayers. For a number of consecutive weeks, they saw that this brother is absent. Someone went after him. And they said, why aren't you coming to Masjid Sahle anymore? Brothers, sisters, pay attention. He was spending all of his time, dedicating all of his time for his then family who was his father. He was just serving his father who was possibly all what he had from this dunya. Guess what? He said, one night I was walking towards Masjid As-Sahla. I saw our Imam of time in front of me. Keep in mind, he was so pure that he could have met the Imam. Do not forget that. So what he was doing was amal salih, was the right deed and the right time, was the good action. He said, I met the Imam, and our beloved Imam of time, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, said, Alayka bil aud. Your duty is to go back. Oh, I'm coming to Masjid al-Sahle to pray, to make dua, to get connected to you. I am the Imam. I'm asking you. No, I'm commanding you. Go back and stay with your father. Where else can you grow and practice mysticism like home? Nowhere. I'm telling you, nowhere. No university, no hawza, no Islamic seminary, no college can offer you such practical courses and teachings like the family does. Allama Tabatabai said to that brother, are you single or married? The brother said, I am married. He said, your prescription of suluk, your path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with forgiving and forgetting, ahl gozasht shudan in home. Sometimes we forgive, but we never forget. Alhamdulillah, God blesses our sisters. They have a spectacular memory. Spectacular memory. When it comes to the times of confrontations, they have this file and they take out this card from 7 years ago. They say, hey, 7 years ago on a Monday, 11:35, you said this word. You're like, I don't even remember what I ate lunch for yesterday. Ayatollah Allama Tabatabai said to this brother, your path of growth, spiritual development, your practical mysticism is summarized in this, Ahl Gozasht Shudan, because you are married. Be a compromiser. Be a compromiser. Forgive and forget. That is the difficult part. Forgive, you can try to forgive, but forgetting is difficult. Beside the salawat, please. Can I make a dua on this night? For those who are married and for those who are about to get married, inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give them such patience that they hear more than talk, especially at home. They can inhabitate themselves, they can get themselves into this habit of not easily getting into a fight, not easily replying the things that can start a friction. This was the Allama Ja'fari, rahmatullah alayh, this philosopher, this lover of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, who was a philosopher. He says, one time, we were at home, me and my wife, our volume raised. The fight was about to start. All of a sudden, I said to myself, hey, you're not a violent animal. You're not a wild animal. You're a human being. Stop. He said, all of a sudden, it's as if someone whispered to my ears, bend down and kiss your wife's hand. This man is a high-level scholar. He had students after students. He said, all of a sudden I did this in the midst or in the beginning or commencement of a fight. I bent down, kissed my wife's hand. And all of a sudden this entire fight was exchanged with my love being or sitting in her heart forever. She believed that I am a great person. We are talking about it and we are enjoying. this needs a lot of self-combating before this. You have to have done a lot of tazkiyah. Otherwise, in the times of the heat, in the times that fight is about to start, what do we usually do? You think that it's my right. Hajj Agha, it was my right. I had to tell her this. بعد ادبش میکردم. اینجا جاش بود. Brothers and sisters. Or the sisters say, Hajj Agha, if I, compromise in front of my husband, he's gonna continue crossing the red lines. This is the piece of advice that ulama have left us with. That this path of seeking proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts from home, especially when in the times that the right is with you. You are right. Just compromise then. When you see friction is about to start, compromise then. Nothing will happen. In business, it's the other way. In business, take your right. Fight for your right. But in the family, give it up. Let the red line be any sort of fighting. And look at it as a lover of Imam Hussein alayhi salam doing this. Tell them I'm Shia of Imam Rida alayhi salam and Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. All of them have advised me to be a good wife, to be a good husband, to be a good parent, to be a good child. Let fighting not even be the last resort. Sometimes we put it as a last resort. Push it out of the table. Clear the table out of this option. It's not an option. I'm going to end you with this quick story and inshallah start our musibah for tonight, which is a very important night. Usually we remember, and our tawassul is to the first son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Ali al-Akbar. About him, Imam Hussein alayhi salam said he was the most similar, not only in looks, but in his etiquettes and akhlaq and his practice to my grandfather Rasulullah. Anytime we all missed the Holy Prophet, we would have looked at Ali al-Akbar. Let me end up with this story. One of the scholars say, so sometimes when we say compromise and forgiving and giving it up, backing off, we think that it's only between us and our spouse. No. Have the same vision about your in-laws. There was this scholar, for some personal reasons, I do not want to name him, but this scholar was saying that I had a very bad mother-in-law. I was going through poverty. Many of the Hausa students are having difficult financial life for specific reasons, because they're studying and the study period is a very long period. So he said that I was having a very difficult time, and every time we paid a visit to my mother-in-law, she would look down on me, she would humiliate me, she would curse me for being poor, and she would label me as someone who is unemployed, who cannot afford the financial life. And every time I was tolerating it. And one time it had reached the limit. So I went to my ustad and I said, Agha, I want to divorce my wife. He said, why? I said, because I have a very bad mother-in-law that disrespects me continuously. Just because I'm not financially as strong or as compatible as his other son-in-law. Continuously comparing me with others. To the extent that I feel weakness in continuing my path of Hausa studies. Allah said, you can't divorce your wife. He first asked, he said, do you have any issues with your own wife? He said, no, she's very good wife. She really cooperates with me. He said, you can't divorce your wife because there's no problem with her. Try to compromise with your mother-in-law, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elevate you. He said, it was after this conversation, I head back again to my mother-in-law. This time she saw me, she started again. The fire started. And she said, in the midst of her cursing and fighting with me, she started cursing my mother. My heart truly burnt. I was about to burst into tears, but I kept silent and I just walked out. I walked out into the streets, and all of a sudden I saw that I am not one person anymore. There's a two version of me. One is walking ahead, filled with light. One is left behind, filled with darkness and dhulumat. And all of a sudden I felt that all of my darkness and all of my bad deeds are left aside. By just this patience, he said, I ran back again. And I just ran to her and kissed her hand. And I told her, you don't know what good you have done to me. And he said, by this action, she started loving me again. This tawadu can change the game. Isn't this? Muhammad, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-ali al-azim. Assalamu alayka ya baba najat al-ummah ya rahmat Allah al-wasi'a Hussein, every companion of Abu Abdullah at their times came to seek permission to hit on the battlefield. Sayyid al-Shuhada was not giving permission right away, that he was making them insist, except two individuals. Amongst his companions, it was Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyai. As he came forward and sought permission, Sayyid al-Shuhada allowed him right away, commanded him to hit on the battlefield, because he knew he will be ashamed and embarrassed to see Lady Zainab Salamullah alayhi and all the Ahlul Bayt. The second individual was not from the companions, he was from the children of Abu Abdullah, Ali al-Akbar, his first son, his oldest son, the one who was the closest in his looks and practice to the Rasulullah. He came to Abu Abdullah seeking permission. Sayyid al-Shuhada easily gave him permission to hit on the battlefield. But the history says that once he was leaving, he was not wounded yet. He was on his own horse yet. Nothing had happened yet. Sayyid al-Shuhada was walking behind him, shedding tears. and praying, Allahumma ashhad qad barada ilayhim ghulamun. Oh Allah, be my witness that my son, this young lad, is heading towards the battlefield while he is the closest it looks to the Holy Prophet that gave the enemies extra reasons to make the battle the most possible difficult for Ali Akbar, that gave them another reason for severely striking Ali Akbar. Sallallahu alayka, Father, oh my dear father, Ya Abu Abdullah, if I were upon the truth, let death come and test us. Death we embrace. They can do and say what they wish. We'll show the world the truth, show their true face. Give permission to go fight to me. I will show them your father Ali. Show the world how to live and die free. Ali Akbar, Akbar, the Lion of Hussein. He was the beautiful moon of Layla. His walk was like that of Ali. He reminded all of Rasulallah how the chest of Akbar will shatter. Who will help Mawla Hussein gather the remains of his son will scatter. Ali Akbar, Ali Akbar. اما شب هشتمه بریم ازن روزه بگیریم از امام رضا آقا جانم. اللهم صل على علی ابن موسی الرضا المرتضی الامام التقی النقی و حجتك على من فوق الارض. دلمون مشهد میخواد و من تحت السراب الصدیق الشهید صلاة كثيرة تامة زاكية متواصلة متواترة مترادفة كأفضل ما صليت على أحد من أوليائك يا أبا الحسن يا رضا يا أبا الحسن يا رضا يا أبا الحسن یا ابا. زرنگ باشی امشب میتونی زیارت اربعینت رو از امام رضا بگیری. ذکر یا رضا دارم به دل پریشونم، شبایی که دل تنگم به یاد خراسونم. صحنه با صفای رضا، سقا خونه کربلاست، دل همه عاشقا کبوتر گنبد طلاست. یا ابوالحسن یا رضا، یا ابوالحسن یا ابوالحسن. دل میبره از عالم مسجد گوهر شادش، آسمون حاجت هاست پنجره فولا. این شبا دارم به وصیت خودت عمل میکنم آقای خوبم. خودت گفتی ابن شبیب ان کنت باکیا علی شیء فابکی للحسین، برا حسین گریه کن. دل میبره از عالم مسجد گوهر شادش، آسمون حاجت هاست پنجره فولا. امشب با امید اومدم در خونه جوون امام حسین. ای امام رضایی که لحظای آخر چشم را بودی، جوون جوادالائمه برسه سر تو به دامن بگیره. آقا میدونی شما دیدی، شما مصیبت کربلا رو دیدی. کربلا کار برعکس شد، جای این که پسر سر بابا رو به دامن بگیره، بابا سر علی رو به دامن گرفت. چه سر اربایی. یاد اون شهیدا بخیر که زائر مشهد شدن موقع زیارت، همه مسافر مشهد شدن. یا ابوالحسن یا رضا، یا ابوالحسن یا رضا، یا مثل حیدر برگشت، آنقدر تاخت که تقدیر مقرر برگشت. موسپیدان سپاه همه گفتند جوانی پیمبر برگشت. در مصاف اکبر هرچه سردار به جنگ آمده بی سر برگشت. میمنه رفت به جنگ چشم برهم زدم از قسمت دیگر برگشت. تا که نامش را گفت رجز خوند، گفت انا علی ابن حسین ابن علی. تیغها باز به سمت علیک، آخه بغضن لعلی می زدنش، مثل جدش جنگید. او علی رفت به میدان و علی تر برگشت. از دل گرد و غبار ارتشی یک نفره از دل لشکر برگشت. شد به سرعت قسمت بار آخر اومد با بابا ودا کنه. بعضی اینطور میگن ابی عبدالله تو میدون نگاش میکنه. امام میدونه علی اکبر کیه، ما نمیدونیم. شاید هنوز سید الشهدا از علی دل نکنده. برگشت بار آخر سمت بابا سنگینی زره خستم کرده، آتش تابم رو بریده. سید الشهدا لبای خشکشو به علی نشون داد. علی جان برو، راضی شدم بابا، برو. رفت به میدان، خون جلوی چشمان اسب رو گرفت. اسب به جای این که به خیمه برگرده به دل دشمن رفت. هر کی هرچی بغض و کینه از امیرالمومنین داشت یه مجال خوبی پیدا کرد. اربا یعنی همین، رو سر این پسر هرچه شمشیر بود فرود می اومد. بدنش قسمت شد به سرعت قسمت، تن این شیر پسر گشت به شدت قسمت. ارث آل علی است، بین بابا و علیش شده قربت قسمت. علوی و نبوی است، بین سیمای علی گشت شباهت قسمت. در ذریح بدنش بین یک لشگر خنجر شده حاجت قسمت. نه فقط بین نبرد که برایش شده انواع شهادت قسمت. اربا یعنی بدنش روی عبا هم شده قسمت. برگردیم خیمه، حال ابی عبدالله رو ببینیم. میگه پیر و سرگردان است، بین این جمع پراکنده پدر حیران است. کوثری خونالود، همه سهم من امروز از این قرآن است. در عزای بدنت خنجر و تیر و کمان، تیغ و سنان گریان است. هیچ حرفی نزدی چون سر نیزه میان دهنت مهمان است. استخوانت پیداست، تکه تکه بدنت از زره هاویزان است. چند بخشد اینجاست، چند بخش از تن تو آن طرف میدان است. شاعر عرب چقدر قشنگ میگه هر 5 تن در کربلا نماینده داشتن. اشبه الناس خلقا و خلقا و منطقا برسولک، فاستأذن اباه فی القتال. اجازه گرفت فأذن له، ابی عبدالله اجازه داد. این که عرب میگه فأذن له، این فاء فوره، یعنی سریع بهش اجازه داد. دلکند از علی اکبر بالاخره، چشمای سید الشهدا گریونه. روزه من همین باشه. و امام صادق فرمود ولا تسکن علیک من ابیک زفرة. تو زیارت علی اکبر یعنی داغ جگر سید الشهدا هیچ وقت بعد علی آروم نشد. شما میدونید، شنیدید، روزه خونا براتون گفتن، از بچگی تو این روزه ها بزرگ شدید، میدونید چه شد. من کار ندارم، تحمل گفتنشم ندارم، فقط یک کلام باقی میمونه. میگه وقتی علی اکبر از مرکب رو زمین افتاد، با اون حال بابا رو صدا زد، السلام علیک یا ابتا، هذا جدی یقرئک السلام و یقول لک عجل القدوم الینا. پیغمبر اینجاست داره سلامت میکنه، میگه حسین به سمت ما شتابان بیا. تا بابا رسید بالا سرش، مقتل میگه شهقتن فمات، یه دست و پا زد از دنیا رفت، پر شد مظهر عزت سید الشهدا اینجا پر شد. فوضع خده علی خده، صورت رو صورت پسر گذاشت. اینجا بود ابی عبدالله گفت علی الدنیا بعدک الافعال. میگه دشمن، راوی دشمن میگه دیدم صدا میاد، لکعنی انظر الی امرأة خرجت مسرعا، دیدم یه خانومی به دل میدان زد. میخوای بلند گریه کنی، روز خون فکر نکنه تنهاست، روز خون فکر نکنه حق روزه داره پایمال میشه. بسم الله. زینب به میدان زد، حسینشو نجات داد، خواهرانه جوانانه بنی هاشم بیایید، علی را بر در زینب موی کنان اومد، گفت وا حبیبا داداش نبینم غم داری، وا خیم وا ثمرت فؤادا. زینب اینجا حسین آروم کرد، اما روز عاشورا زینب کسی رو نداشت آرومش کنه. اینجا بود بی صدا زد، یا فتیان بنی هاشم، بچه ها و جوانای بنی هاشم بیاید، احملو اخاکم. حسینی که همه شهیدا رو خودش برگردونده دیگه تاب نداره علی رو برگردونه. جوانان بنی هاشم بیایید، علی